Having property passed down from one generation to the next is often seen as a major goal for families across the country. But for many Americans, that goal can get caught up in what's called a tangled title. What is a tangled title?
So a tangled title, sometimes called an heirs property or fractional ownership, it's where a person owns a home, they pass away, but they do so without a clear plan for what's going to happen to that home.
Kate Bolger with Money Management International says that often happens when people die without a will or estate planning.
And that's a challenge because then suddenly the home is owned by multiple people, and it becomes really difficult to do things with that home.
Without a clear owner, families may have difficulties applying for aid after a disaster or getting insurance.
What happens with these often is that, that first generation has a little bit of a tangled title, right? So maybe there's two kids who inherit the home, but when they have children, if a plan hasn't been made for their portion of ownership of that house, then it defaults to all of their children.
Leading to a tangled web of who owns what. Experts say tangled titles primarily impact the Black community. One study found that Black families have the highest percentage of tangled titles at 87%. Bolger says this is because for generations, Black consumers were locked out of the court system.
If you can't put a will through probate, then you're stuck with a tangled title.
Bolger also says African Americans did not list just one person in a will because it offered homeowners some protection against racist and unethical entities that might try and take their homes away. Michael Neal with the Urban Institute also studies the history of tangled titles. He says some of the ways you could potentially resolve a tangled title is by transferring the deed to one person's name, split the property between multiple people, or form a cooperative. Neal also says search for the documentation that will prove ownership of the property.
Particularly for families who may have, over time, and by time I mean, the last century or more, have kind of migrated, from one part of the country, like the South, to another part of the country, like the North. And, fortunately, the technological systems that we have today, allow us to do that. It does require financial resources, then that's another area in order to both identify, but also ultimately to reclaim and fully claim the property.
With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Caresse Jackman.